If we're going to talk about this, you know, I saw this on my subreddit. It's the deep fat fried boys going over a video of mine. A Thermia video, actually. Thermia, as always, fronting the very best uh of my channel. Thank you, Thermia. Man, this is an hour long. Apparently they get really angry at me here. This, whatever this conversation ended up becoming, it was significant enough that TJ messaged me, and he was quite nice, but he messaged me to express disagreement. So I guess the contents of this stream gave him enough, like he was left with enough thoughts that he wanted to directly message me about it. TBH, it kind of sucks how you go against the DSA with no real alternative. Yeah, look, there are branches of the DSA that do good work. The main issue is just that because they don't have, they're not very organized. They don't have much of a, like, central structure. It seems like they're doomed to perpetual ineffectiveness because all of these various branches just run off and do their own thing. You know what I mean? That's a big issue because most of the time, the only time you hear about DSA chapters is when one of them does something really dumb. That's when you hear about them, right? So, like, you can have a bunch of DSA chapters that are, like, very diligently and carefully you know, working to advance, like, local political goals, and then you can have 2 or 3 of them being, like, loud and obnoxious and annoying, and that ends up dragging the media attention, and it lacks the discipline that historically civil rights or political advocacy groups have. The main reason why I say, you know, if you have a locally effective DSA chapter, or if you think you can get work done there, hell, even if you don't think so, it's worth it to attend a meeting. Take a look at the vibes, you know? Check the vibes. But at the same time, if you want to really get into politics as a career or even as an activist, I think that you're probably more likely to get the resources that you need working with the Democrats. Not because the Democrats are, like, good, but because there's probably, like, a higher density of career opportunities and connections that you can make. There are some, like, local Dem groups that are effective, and there are, like, young, activated progressives working at a local level. A lot of them are just total horseshit, though. But even the horseshit ones have something worthwhile in them for you, you know, as, like, a springboard to learn more or to get involved. That all depends. That could be said of literally everything. I mean, yeah, obviously that all depends, right? It always all depends. But it's a general statement. Is watching you still a screening question? Yeah, I do. I have heard multiple times from different people that there have been DSA, like, organizers that have been weird about me and, like, brought me up, which is always very strange. Hello, Artemis. It really depends on the actual movement. I still think that, like, if you are interested in getting involved, check out your local DSA chapter, you know? I think it would be to your benefit. I work with both the Young Dems and the DSA. One feels like networking and the other feels like activism. Both are fine if you call yourself a leftist and a serious person / adult. Yeah, it's also not, you know, mutually exclusive. You can do both. Yeah, I think I agree. Networking is very important if you want to build the experience, skills, and the resume for being an effective political actor. You can learn a lot of useful stuff, even from people who aren't anywhere near as left-leaning as you, right? There are people who think you're not genuine. Also a universally applicable statement, but not genuine in what respect? If I'm asked if I watch Vaush, should I say no to the DSA? Yes, always deny. Deny, deny, deny. I'm Swedish and you got mentioned at a local left party meeting, not super positively. My main experience with the DSA and with DSA people, from what I've seen, is that a lot of them are basically using it as a social group for permanently online LARPers who don't really have much of an idea or interest as to how to apply their goals to the real world. That's not universally applicable, but that is definitely, like, a tendency in the DSA. Of course, that's not to say that the Democrats don't also have negative tendencies. I talk about those all the time. It's more just a matter of, like, what can you do to advance your interests and the interests of the, you know, the people broadly. That's every DSA near Dallas I've checked. Yeah. It's 50 minutes long. I'll click around a little bit. It looks like it's time-stamped heavily. Maritime trade, Vaush Limbaugh, into the Vaush pit, Twitter is not real, vote liberal, being charitable, leftism is failure. I remember saying that. That's true. I'm cribbing that directly off of Disco Elysium, by the way. Communism is failure. Yeah. DSA worse than liberals. Vaush left the left. Another right-wing win. Vaush don't know. What does the DSA do? Okay. Vaush Limbaugh. I think they're going to be very shouty. I anticipate shouting.
The Houthis, you know, it's pretty much any war project that America's got going.
That's true.
Anti-music thinks music is a total waste of time and like a brain drain, you know?
Okay.
Who am I talking about? Rush Limbaugh or Vaush?
I mean,
that's pretty true.
Why does the radical left sound like Rush Limbaugh from 15, 20 years ago?
Is Rush Limbaugh anti-music? Is that a position that he has? Am I anti-music? I was listening to Get Low in the shower while I was getting ready for stream this morning. You do say some weird shit about music. I saw a clip of you saying you can't critically engage. No. People like to interpret what I say really uncharitably there. And to be honest, this does bother me a little bit. All I was saying was that if I'm like looking at people on dating profiles and I'm trying to see what their interests are, I wouldn't know what to say or how to talk with a person whose like primary interest was music. You can't listen to music together with a person and have the same kind of extensive conversations or opinions on it the way you can with a movie because, and I'm really sorry to tell you guys this, and I know a lot of you are going to be triggered by it, a movie has more overlapping elements to engage with than music. Obviously, movies contain music plus other things. It would be like if a person on a dating profile said they like looking at paintings. Obviously, looking at paintings is like a fully, like that's a fully valid and engaging way to work with art. But like, if that was a person's primary, like hobby, looking at paintings, like do they just sit in their computer chair and like look at painting? Like I don't mind looking at paintings. I love going to the museum or art galleries or whatever. But then do I, like if we're like hanging out, do I just like sit next to them and like look at the paintings? Like I could talk about that, but I don't know. I feel like there's a little less to work with conversationally. Maybe music and paintings feel like more of an internal emotional. Yeah, this is a bad take. No, it's not. No, you people are insane on that. You people are insane on this. I can say the most because you're all engaging with this like on an internal level, and you're thinking like, well, I've had deep emotional experiences with music. I'm not talking about your emotional experiences. I'm talking about talking with another person. Yes, you can. I feel like, I feel like I should just ban all of you. If for no other reason than because no effort is being made to actually engage with what I'm saying. I think I'll just do that. There we go. Oh, it's going to be a lot of people. It's going to be a lot of people. Oh, yeah. Ooh, there we go. Yeah. Anyway, I'm correct on this. We've done this whole thing before, and the problem is that people get really emotional about music and art generally because, well, that's fine. It's an emotional work. So as a consequence of this, people get like so defensive that they don't engage with anything that I'm saying. After the last time we talked about this, basically everyone in chat ended up agreeing with me, but it took like 2 hours of massaging the hurt egos of people who don't have a personality outside of liking a given band. I'm really sorry, guys. But if you genuinely think that, like there's no underlying truth or like point to what I'm saying, then you're off on this. Like, listen, I understand what you mean, Vaush, but I think you're not really understanding how deeply you can appreciate music. There are YouTube channels dedicated to shit. Missing the point, banned. All for one day. You can come back later. Unironically read some music theory, banned. Missing the point. Not difficult. Vaush musicians do this all the time. I'm not a musician. Why would I, if on a dating profile, want to engage with a person on the basis of what a musician would like to do? Vaush, do you know about music theory? You can go very banned. Literally, none of you listened to what I said. Vaush, you can connect with people over music so easily. Didn't say you can't. Banned. Nothing gets me more than people not actually listening to what I say and getting angry at an imagined version of the thing that I said. But music is much more personalizing. Banned. Nothing to do with what I said. Ban me, I'll take one for the team. Banned. Vaush, I think this might be an autism thing. Probably. But also banned. Vaush is right, just sitting there listening to music in silence as a date is weird. I think you can do that. I don't know if you could do it for like 2.5 hours the way you could with the movie. I mean, you can, but I think it's a little less common. People in chat are going to pretend it's not less common. People in chat are going to be like, no, actually, it's just as common to sit and watch music in silence for 2.5 hours as it is to watch a movie. That's just as common. It's just as common to do that. And me too. Okay. Do. Vaush, it's really just a you problem. I think I've never heard anyone say this. It's not really a me problem. I'm not talking about any like sort of personal opinion thing. The fact that music has less layers to engage with than a movie is pretty much objective. Vaush, I think it's a good take, but it doesn't really only apply to music. Wouldn't it be hard to talk to a movie snob / expert about a movie? Well, we're not talking about like the level of expertise. We're just talking about how much material is being provided. Obviously, if you're watching like a movie or a TV show, this is an incredibly complicated and multi-layered piece of media. It's multimedia, literally, right? So you have like narrative and character stuff, and you have the writing, and then you have music, and you have like there's so much stuff that goes into it, with music just being one part of it. So, of course, being multi-layered, there's like more ways to engage with it. Much in the same way that there's like an entire universe of thought and experience that goes into paintings. But like, if you just sat and watched that with somebody, watching music on its own is like looking at a pretty image on its own, in that it's a totally valid and cool thing to do. But I would have trouble making that the primary shared experience with another person. Maybe if I was at a concert or an art museum or something like that, then that's kind of like a venue specifically designed to, you know, to maximize the sort of engagement there. Have you taken any art history class? Yep, 2 of them, and honors. And I went to the extracurriculars. Thank you. What do you think about the way music impacts society? That's a pretty broad question. Music's cool. Vaush, I don't think you can get this point across better than you already have so far. Yeah, it's just really, oh man, I don't mind people disagreeing with me. It's just sometimes like I can hear like the clicking going off in somebody's brain, or in all of chat's brain collectively, especially with emotionally impactful stuff like music, because obviously it's art, right? So it hits you right in the brain heartstrings. And people like don't listen to anything that I'm saying, and they just run off with it, you know? Yep, the essay posting. Weren't we supposed to watch paulsego be emotional? Well, we're now watching chat be emotional. Definitely not me. I'm totally emotionally detached. There's no way that I'm involved in this at all. What are your thoughts on watching music videos? Why? What do you think I'm against watching music videos? Music videos are cool. What again, like people ascribe like the weirdest positions to me. Like people unironically act like I don't think music is art or something, like some Ben Shapiro ass. Like, come on, guys. Vaush, you're doing a Mott and Bailey. Your original claim was framed much more contentiously. That I'm not doing a Mott and Bailey at all. My position has stayed consistent this entire time. If you ascribed a bunch of stupid bullshit that you interpreted to my original position, and now upon further clarification you feel that I'm being disingenuous for not being as dumb as you uncharitably thought I was, that's on you. Vaush, I study art history, and I think you're kind of right. Unless you both are really into paintings or music and go super deep into analysis, there's not that much to talk about. Yeah, there is a reason why going to the theaters to watch a movie is a far, far more common date or hangout thing than like, I don't know, like going to a museum. And even that's not really the same, too, because a museum or a concert are like very specific curated venues. I guess it would be more like queuing up a bunch of images on your computer to look at. Wait, people just sit and listen to music in silence? I can understand doing it on one's own, but as a date, that can be cool, right? It's not really my thing, but I get that. I'm just saying there's less to talk about with that than there would be with a movie, like on average. And people, when I say that, people are thinking what I'm saying is there's less involved effort, or there's, well, of course there's less involved effort than a movie. Movies are insanely difficult to make, obviously. And they take like thousands of people or whatever. But yeah, on average, less so. You see Vaush is racist because he's saying he doesn't like rock and roll. True. Vaush, this feels like an example of you not having much musical interest or skill. I have long conversations with my girlfriend all the time about specific songs, techniques, different riffs being played, the mix, etc. You're exactly what I'm talking about. If you having a specific interest, do you think that's broadly applicable? Like the average person is like sitting and hanging out with their date and listening to music and going like, man, the specific riff, musical theory, da-da-da. Like, come on, you're obviously engaging with it because you have like a talent for or an interest in the subject. Not everyone who watches movies is into cinematography, you know? Like, Yes, I do that. It's not about whether you do that. Again, use some critical thinking. This isn't about whether or not it's possible to do that. We're just saying, on average, if you're hanging out with people... Oh, man. Vaush, I feel like you just didn't have many shared experiences like that. Unironically ableist, get banned. I've chilled out listening to music with people before. How thick do you have to be I just don't think you've had the essential bonding experience of sitting in a room choked with weed smoke, listening to a band that I like. Yes, I have. What are you talking about? Jesus. What about concept albums? What about them? I agree with what you're saying. It's like when people say, I am a music fan, it's like, what do they mean? Yeah, oh, well, don't say that. Chat will say that you're, like, autistic and don't have a right to any opinion. You're saying that music is an art. If you say that that's, like, kind of an ambiguous statement. Vaush, can you not have conversations about video games? Of course. Video games have more going on than music, definitionally, because video games contain music. Chat thinks you're saying all music is slop, Vaush. Oh my god, chat's really active here. Vaush, do you think you don't have to go on a deeper level to engage with and converse about film? Nope, you don't. That is the brilliance of narrative storytelling. You don't need to know anything about cinema or even care about cinema to have strong opinions on narrative, because narrative is a human element that's present in or outside of art. That's the whole point. That's the reason why movies, books, television, and video games, you know, art that has a general narrative element, characters and stories and dialogue that you can follow, tends to elicit way more discussion, because those are elements of real life human behavior that we all have opinions on. You can't not have an opinion on a subject like the way characters are written, because we write our own dialogue. Today I learned music isn't narrative. I'm banning you for 30 days because you have to be so bad faith. You, oh my god, bro, you can have a story in an album. Guys, please, are you, come on. You, see, come on, dude. Do you know how difficult this is for me? It's crazy. It's like you're genuinely making the effort, you know? What about subcultures around music? What about them? Oh, we're not talking about that. Vaush, do you think books and movies are the same level of general discussion? What does that mean? Do you mean how much can people talk about them having read them together? Well, you can't really read a book together, obviously. The most you can do is have two separate people reading the same book in the same room, I guess. It's not really a shared media experience, unless two people are like reading over each other's shoulder or something. But yeah, people talk about books that they read, like in book clubs. That's the whole thing. But obviously that's fallen off because movies are easier to engage with, because you can just sit and watch them and not have to like engage with the text. I feel like this is like a critical thinking issue, you know? This really is a Vaush L, is it? Or is it a 30-day ban? Vaush, I'm studying music in college and many of my friends are various kinds of music majors. You're completely correct about this. Oh, I know I am. I appreciate the affirmation, but I know I'm correct on this. This isn't an opinion that's separated by knowledge of music versus not knowledge of music. This is an opinion separated by people who are right, like me, and wrong, and probably socially inept and smelly, like some of the people in chat. It's mostly a matter of confidence, I think. Insecurity is what's causing people to disagree with me on this. Or a lack of critical thinking skills. Vaush, people being called out because it turns out liking music isn't a whole personality. They hate to be told that. Liking movies isn't either, by the way. Vaush, bring it back to the example of dating profiles. I like music and I'm really into music theory / composition / etc. give completely different impressions of a person. Yes, I agree. Yeah, 100%. If I saw a person's bio say, I like music, I wouldn't get from that the impression that they were into music theory. I would get the impression that they're into listening to music, which is different, obviously. I would be interested in listening to a person into music theory talk about music, you know? I have friends that are into music theory, because that's like a different level than just like listening to the music and having opinions on the music. Much in the same way that I don't really know what I like movies means. Stream is choppy. It's YouTube. OBS is working fine. Sorry about that. So you want everyone who makes music to die. Yes. Vaush, is your point with movies that the subject matter casts a wider net, like one could really engage with the plot while another dissects the score? No, it's that the narrative element of art is the thing that humans have an innate opinion on, basically, because the things that allow us to appreciate that are literally hard coded into our brain as a like element of our ability to have social experiences. So if you are watching a movie, most of the time the opinions people come away with in the movie are opinions on the plot, the story, the characters, because those are the human social elements that we literally have chunks of our brain dedicated to processing. That's something that humans have like a very specific relationship with. Now, you might come away from a movie saying like, wow, the art was really beautiful, or like the visuals were beautiful. Of course, sure. But we are just better at and more likely to, on average, outside of like the specialties, right? People who are especially interested in them, engage with that kind of stuff. Same with books. Video games, of course, have narratives. A lot of them do. You know, that's just something we like to dissect. So movies can be more slop than music or book because no, we're not talking about slop. No, I haven't used that word. We're not talking about slop. Any art form can be slop. Vaush, this is wild. You take one position, then when people try to nuance your position, you claim that was what you were saying the whole time. You're not wrong, just buoyant. You're delusional. You're fighting shadows. You're being attacked on all sides by phantoms. Ghosts are choking you out. Okay, you quickly. Okay, make your way to some holy water. All right, you shadow boxer. Jesus, Shadow's being super bad faith at this point. I don't know. I guess it's the people who have "I like music" in their dating bios. Would you agree that people can talk about music in terms of you can talk about music? What do you mean? Would you agree people can talk about music? Of course, I don't need to agree on that. It's already true. My consensus on the matter is irrelevant. Again, you're asking for my permission. You're either mad at me for the imagined position that music is bad or dumb or something, or you're like insecurely asking, well, it's okay to be like this. You can be whatever, dude. It's fine. It's okay. Oh my God, we spent so long on this topic, Lamau. Well, it's not really about the music. There's nothing to me more frustrating than what I perceive as being deliberately misunderstood. Most of my time as a YouTuber has been, from my perspective, fighting like upstream against people who are willfully dishonest when they interpret what I say. I deal with a lot of stuff like that, and for the most part, I can tolerate it outside of the community because the alternative to tolerating it would be, I don't know, being upset all the time. I will say, though, it does bother me when it comes from within the community, especially on a topic that's not as, like, politically important. Like, my opinions on music aren't really a moral question, even if you thought I had a bad take. This is what I'd consider a relatively trivial subject. We're not talking about human rights here. So for people in chat to leap out at me with what I think are very bad faith interpretations of what I say, it is very, very frustrating. I expect it from paulsego, but when a bunch of people in chat are acting like paulsego, do you see the issue? Move on, please. I will move you on to the nether realm for one day. To be fair, some of your early clips are incredibly... Yeah. Well, it's been 5 years, Unorthodox Monkey. Has chat always been like this since the start, or has chat deteriorated over time? No, chat is probably better than it used to be. However, this particular subject, the music thing, has always gotten people, and I just don't get it. I think you need to explain your point clearly again. No, my point has been clearly explained. A failure to understand it properly is on other people, not on me. I could repeat it an infinite number of times, and there would always be people who would be like, ah, well, you actually mean this. How come chat is insane about music and smoking weed? There's probably an overlap between the two groups. Also, it's insecurity. I say, you know, a lot of people are coping about being weed addicts, and the people who are insecure about the fact that they are coping weed addicts get mad at me. Likewise, people are insecure about, I don't know, the validity of their engagement with music, as though I don't listen to music all the time. So they lash out at me. That behavior is almost always a product of insecurity. I think people think when you say movies are multi-layered and a lot more complicated, it's less about the complication and more about the presence of the narrative element. And yes, music can be narrative, but if you don't know the difference between the narrative presence in a movie and music, again, you're acting in bad faith. You're being ridiculous, frankly. You're being silly, okay? If you genuinely can't tell the difference between, like, 2 hours of plot and dialogue and so on, versus, like, the narrative infused in an album or, like, a rock opera or something, you know? What's 9 plus 10? 21. So you think saying I don't like music is more info on a person than I like music? Yes. If a person said I don't like music in their bio, I would instantly swipe left. I think that's like incredibly weird, and it comes across as like Redditor behavior to me. You know, like fedora tipping, like I'm too smart to appreciate. I only engage with real like you know, serious media like Warhammer 40K books or whatever. That's honestly unexpected of you, only because you're. When have I ever said I don't like music? Why would I? When have I said? Why would you get that from what I've said? Why? Why? Why would you interpret that from what I've said? Most Moose, whatever you're saying is unimportant to what I've said. Whatever the answer is, it's yes or maybe no. You'll have to take it for yourself. I'm not reading all that. I think the thing we take issue with is that you think music is a lesser art, or at least art less capable of being engaged with critically. Um, it's not a lesser art. There's no such thing as a lesser art. And in terms of like ability to engage with critically, you can engage with anything critically to any level. It's about how readily people can engage with it. It is easier to engage with a movie than it is to engage with music. The average person with no special interest in movies can probably hold an extensive conversation on a movie because the narrative element in a movie is a something that ties into parts of how we think that we have very strong opinions on by default. The way characters behave, you know? There are elements to that that we have just a innate appreciation of. Whereas with music, well, obviously, like there is an element of us that seems to appreciate music on an almost fundamental level, but that doesn't necessarily mean we can engage with it or hold a conversation on it to the same extent. I think if you took the average person with no special interest in music or movies, just like a normie core dad, you know, someone who wears like a white polo and ill-fitting khaki shorts, and he grills in the backyard, and he thinks that like, you know, Cajun seasoning is too spicy for him, and I took him out to watch a movie and also sat him down to listen to an album. I bet I could hold more of a conversation on the content of the movie than I could the album easily. And if you disagree with that, you're insane. You're mentally ill, and you should be locked up. If there are any relatives of the people who disagree with that listening, strongly encourage you to intern them in a mental health care facility so that they can be kept away from society and can't hurt other people. If you disagree with that, you're delusional. You're schizophrenic. You're every mental illness, ableism, everything with your brain that can go wrong has gone wrong. You're actually having a seizure right now. All right. Wow, is it Vaush saying this or Rush Limbaugh? I'm literally copying off the Rush Limbaugh script. In my experience, they wouldn't pay attention to the movie and would have forgotten 90% of it by the end. Then the same would be the case of the album, and they would probably have less to say about that. Would you say this take could be said for fashion? If there's anything I've learned over the past 5 months, it's that fashion, which is an art form, is clearly not easy to engage with for most people. Kind of proves my point. Fashion is objectively an art form, and here we have constant daily evidence that a lot of people are so willfully, obstinately unwilling to engage with it that they act the way they do. Okay? Like, yeah, I feel like that, if anything else, proves my point about the relative accessibility of different art forms in terms of finding something to talk about. Like, you can infinitely engage with fashion, but show a random person, like, a guy in jeans and a t-shirt, what are they going to say? Like, yeah, that's jeans and a t-shirt. I mean, you could go into like the history of Levi's and denim and copper, you know, rivets, buttons, and blah, blah, blah. Like, you could do that, sure. Is the average person going to do that? No. That being said, if a person in their bio said, I like fashion, the fashion is like an obscure enough mode of art that I feel like I might think, oh, maybe they're a little more into it. Because how can you be into fashion without having some degree of like engaged interest in it? You know what I mean? That's just like a social thing, though. That's more of a like, colloquially, when a person says I'm into fashion, they wouldn't just mean I like staring at outfits. It probably means that they would have some opinion on constructing them. Yeah, I guess it would be like saying I like clothes. Vaush loves being indignant at being misunderstood by chat. Well, in fairness, I think that's a valid thing to get upset about, right? So this has less to do with the content of the art form and more to do with the accessibility of that art form to an extent, and like the ability for the average person to say something interesting about it. I'd like to think that I, like music. I mean, I do. I listen to it and I like it. That's not really something that can be disputed. And I could talk about it a bit, but I couldn't really sustain much of a conversation on it because I don't have like a special interest in it. I don't watch many movies, but I know for a fact that if I watched a movie, I could have lots of opinions on it because I have opinions on human social interactions, which are present in movies, but not generally in music. Question mark, question mark, question mark. I'm just going to ban you preemptively. Sounds like a you problem. Is it? That's a lot more clear for me, Vaush. Yeah, it's just, yeah. I hope everyone here can understand and appreciate the frustration that I must feel to see a wave of people in chat instantly go like, L take, you're insane, blah, blah, when I'm saying something that, again, I really don't think there's much room for arguing on. Chat can't be fixed, you should move on. I don't know, I banned a lot of people and it looks a lot better now. All right, editors, that's a new segment. You can throw that one to the wind. Now let's look at the deep fat fried thing.
Is what I'm asking everybody. Like, Vaush guys, I know you're out there in the chat. Can you explain to me why Vaush's takes are indistinguishable from Rush Limbaugh's?
That's true. All right.
Assess this shit. Like, I can see the gears just a turning and falls.
Paul has no response. Is this like a meme? Is he going to be like, just kidding, guys, in a second? Or is his opinion is
talk.
The only people that it's worth your time to politically advocate for are the Hillary Clinton liberals? Is that what,
in terms of like trying to get good people elected or trying to stop bad people from getting elected? The only people that are really worth your time are liberals. You can move like the left, the young left vote, and I'm not saying leftists don't vote at all or don't participate.
Let me ask you a question. Rather than do what I normally do.
Yeah, unfortunately, obviously, it's a pretty strongly ingrained two-party system. There are some cases where independents can move some ground at local levels, but in terms of like, if you don't want the fascists to win, then yeah, obviously the Democrats are the are like the venue by which you would do that, you know.
What is the charitable interpretation of this take?
I honestly,
because you know what,
idea.
My instinct is to immediately go like, well, that vindicates me, because I'm on record 3 years ago saying I feel like Vaush is like pipelining radical leftists into liberalism, and I feel like he just kind of did that, right?
Paul, follow your instincts.
There is a difference between doing things that feel left-leaning and being effective as a left-leaning person. Going and joining up with your most radical local communist political advocacy group and doing a bunch of meetings where you talk about like solidarity and such, like that may feel really good, but there's no guarantee that doing that and committing yourself to that is going to lead to better outcomes for anyone. Sometimes the things that are the most effective don't really feel like they're very, epic Twitter lefty woke or whatever. The Democrats are the most entrenched medium for any kind of left of center engagement in this country. That doesn't mean they're the only mechanism by which you can make change happen. It's just they're the largest one. And if nothing else, it can be useful to use them as a platform to build your own voice. Like what Bernie Sanders did. Bernie Sanders correctly identified the Democratic Party as a more effective vehicle for pushing his social democratic policies than continuing to run as an independent when he made a shot for the presidency. He didn't join up with the Dems to like become more liberal or as a form of compromise. He did it because it was a more effective way of fronting his policies. For the average person in my audience, I don't think you guys are going to run for president. I hope you do. Just don't run on any music taste because you clearly have no idea what you're talking about there. But for the most part, I hope you do. And if ever you do, I don't want you to run as like the most left-leaning, super-duper, ultra-communist party candidate. I want you to run as whatever candidate you think maximizes the likelihood of you affecting positive outcomes. Does that make sense?
Thanks on this one. Just go ahead.
Pragmatically, Paul.
I think you just need
the most likely candidate to win.
Remember what your doctor ordered, Paul. Remember?
I like how to Paul's ego, pragmatic is like a smear word that can be used, applied in a nasally voice to delegitimize it, What about being pragmatic? Oh, well, yeah, wait, what about that? Wait, is that not important? Like actually doing something?
What your doctor ordered.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I don't like being right about shit like this. I really don't, because I know there's a lot of young people that look up to this dude, but he is indistinguishable on a number of really important issues from Rush Limbaugh, dude.
Trump would be worse.
Wait, I just skipped like 10 minutes ahead in this video. Is this the theme of the entire video? He really liked that line. It's because people have called me Vaush Limbaugh, which is, to be fair, very funny, but I don't know if this is a sustainable argument outside of the bit.
This type of shit is so far outside of the socialist paradigm or the revolutionary paradigm.
I'm a
This
maverick.
is just straight up like, let's make the same mistakes our parents did. And I don't know how I could.
This is the last conversation that I had with paulsego. I trashed him, and it seems like he's going to spend a lot of his life reliving it by going over stream clips. Most of these arguments, in fact, all of the ones that we've listened to here, are just identical to stuff I trashed him on live. So let me see if there's anything novel in here.
Right, but he's never like just explicitly been like.
This isn't a revelation to me at all.
The only thing politically worth your time is just cyclical voting for liberals. That's
what he advocated on this same show for hours.
Right,
I
but
mean,
he didn't say it explicitly. He tried to dress it up with all of this like fascism is around the corner, my dude.
To me, it's like splitting hairs because
This is another way that you can delegitimize people like this who say that like voting for Democrats because they're preferable to Republicans is anti-revolutionary or it's bad or whatever. They always delegitimize the threat of fascism every time. This is one of the ways you know that they're, unserious would be a word. Rather than having some kind of principled anarchist take on how electoral democracy corrupts revolutionary intent, the way, for example, Zoe Baker has in a conversation that I had with her. You know, she's anti-electoral, but in like an informed, intelligent, theory-based anarchist way. I don't agree with her on the subject, but I respect her opinion. I think it's interesting to listen to. I guess, thinking about it. But in this case, it's just like, I guess willful denial of reality, pretending the fascists aren't as much of a threat as so claimed. You all understand what I'm talking about, right? If only the Democrats are capable of winning against the Republicans, then yeah, you got to vote for them. We can't have the Republicans win in their current state. Maybe in the future that dynamic will change, but right now, yeah. If it feels like you're treading water, that's because you are. Treading water is better than being launched off a waterfall and dying. Yeah, sometimes through electoralism, the most you can hope for is to not die. That's how most of life has been for most of humanity, I think. A good day is one where you don't die. And people will look at that and they'll sneer and they'll go, shouldn't you hope for something better than just not dying? Yes, I do. But that doesn't take away the fact that not dying remains the highest priority, you know? Well, you have to secure that before you can start taking risks on, moving forward, I feel. You can move forward in other ways, too. Not everything is electoral.
It's not this is Vaush's position.
paulsego rhetoric is just accelerationism. No, accelerationism has to be at least a little bit coherent. This is just like doomer whining. It's not... accelerationism is a more... It's not even stupid enough. Or sorry, it's not even... How do I put this? If something is so unprincipled that it fails to even meet the criteria for accelerationism, that is a pretty harsh indictment.
Since I've heard him, but I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying, like, to me, it's obvious.
So he's like baby's first leftist that they, I don't know, like, he's just out there like draping himself in the aesthetics of revolutionary leftism, but ultimately just funneling people into the Hillary Clinton.
That's true. The Hillary. I'm telling people to vote for Hillary Clinton. I like this accusation that I'm like covertly trying to shift people to being liberals or whatever. When A, I say and talk about socialist theory constantly, and B, the fact that I believe in voting for Democrats over Republicans is not exactly a big secret. It's not exactly a hidden element of my channel. People like to do the baby's first leftism thing because they think grown-up leftism is when you say f it the system, man. Revolutionary action, by which paulsego means do nothing and collect like Patreon paychecks in his basement. You know, like he's out there leading the vanguard. People love to look like the most aesthetically leftist guy out there when they don't do shit, and that's so common all over the place. The people on Twitter who call you a rad lib for thinking that Biden winning is better than Trump winning, they don't do anything. They don't do anything. They don't. Not even like in the sense that they're ineffective. I mean, they're not even going to like Antifa like meetings or what. They're not doing anything, you know? They just want to feel like they're better than you. But they're not. And their attitude is childlike.
Meyer, is that what's going on? Am I wrong? Like, I don't know. I'm willing to be challenged. I'm looking in the chat.
Is this the guy who threw a screaming tantrum when you called him childish? Yes.
Distinguish that he does. I mean, like, I don't think he dismisses it entirely, but for all intents and purposes, practically he does. He does say it's like, well, it's not going to happen. That's not where the power base of the party is. That's not who's going to win elections.
Did you see DM go on there? Paul has issues. I did not see DM go on there. I should watch that. Yeah, Paul does have issues. It's unfortunate because I think I enjoyed my first convo with him, but the dude's not well. He's very emotionally committed to this like pathetic projected image of being some kind of like more knowledgeable, I've suffered more than thou, hyper accelerationist doomer leftist, when this aesthetic that he's cultivated is functionally indistinguishable from being a lazy know nothing. You know, it's like, it's a very easy image to cultivate, it turns out, to do nothing and complain about people doing stuff because, you know, they don't lack your self-pitying charm.
Even discussing that or trying to boost those people up is a waste of time because they're not going to win.
You know, action.
Someone agree with me on this topic. You're not a leftist. You're Rush Limbaugh. I pointed out several positions that Vaush has taken, and not like old. I don't want to be accused of like combing through old edgy Vaush stuff. This is like in the last couple of weeks. Vaush has come out as anti-drug, and you shouldn't never trust.
Man, paulsego really is like the spirit of chat, isn't he? You know. This is what you sound like to me, guys. When I say a lot of weed addicts are coping, and you guys all flip out at me, this is what I hear. Okay, he's like the ghost of the worst people in chat.
Trust a drug abuser or user. He's done this now, which, you know, like if you understand anything about American politics, you realize that liberals and neocons are really not that far apart on most issues.
That's true. The Republican Party is not neocon anymore, though. Notably, they haven't been for nearly a decade now. It's, you know, if you look at the news, they call neocons rhinos now. They hate them. Mike Pence was not even a neocon, and they talked about hanging him. It's all Bush war. Dude, it's always the Iraq war. The Iraq war broke the brain of a ton of people. When he thinks of the Democrat-Republican divide, he literally thinks that right now it's like a Gore-Bush difference. Though even back then, Gore would have been infinitely better than Bush. Like, literally, it's always that. That's the dynamic in his head. He's a ghost. DM debated them on was Bush or Trump worse. I guess it's a complicated subject because Bush did the whole war crimes thing. I guess it depends on, like, the first term of Trump did less damage than both terms of Bush, but if Trump's second term ends up destroying American democracy, it'll be like exponentially worse than Bush and even worse than Reagan probably. But Reagan also set in motion everything. It's kind of a complicated, like, you know, that's a tough one.
He's pro-war, super into the Houthi bombing shit going on. I know Rush would have been as well.
My position is like America has to pull out of the Middle East, even if it means Iran gets to like be a cultural hegemon. Let Iran be like the dominant Islam. Like, I'm over here trying to reconstruct the caliphate, and I get called pro-war. Like, Biden pulls out of Afghanistan, and I'm like, yep, absolutely, let's go. The rebuild the in Allah's name, you know. But it doesn't matter what I do or say, does it? I am the strongest soldier of the Ayatollah. Thank you.
Like, I'm not conflating him with Rush Limbaugh baselessly. I'm pointing out some pretty big conservative positions that Vaush seems to parrot. So if you want to like defeat that argument, you're going to have to go back and say Rush Limbaugh never said that.
Yeah, the reason I'm supportive of America bombing the Houthis in Operation Prosperity Guardian is because too many of them are Sunni. I'm actually just a like a Shia Islamist supremacist. There's not enough. We need a like true Shia dominance in Yemen, and we're gonna pound them into submission until they accept the correct branch of Islam.
Or Vaush means it
The
different.
Houthis are Shia. The Houthis actually are surprisingly pragmatist when it comes to their organizing. They've made an effort to do like this big tent thing where they've tried to be inclusive to like other branches. Well, not other branches, like, you know, Sunni or whatever. So yeah, they need to be more orthodox. Big tent.
Differently and explain to me how.
How about this? Is there,
Shia doesn't
can
have
you
a
think of
caliphate. We're making
living
one.
person modern monologue, not monologue, analog on the right that you could compare? Because I mean, I think with Rush, you're always going to get, well, Rush is dead. Who knows what the
Okay,
Rush
well,
was
yeah,
about.
I say Rush because he was the big, but like go Tucker.
Okay, Tucker.
Tucker would be anti-weed. Tucker would be pro Houthi bombing. Tucker's a traditional neocon.
Whoa, dude, he doesn't know anything. Tucker Carlson's a neocon? Tucker Carlson is pro-bombing the Houthis? He might be. He could take either side of that. It depends on which Hitler in his heart wins. He genuinely does. Dude, he's actually locked in September 11th, 2021. That's the last time he had a neuron fire. He's lit, like the plasticity within his brain has solidified. Like there's no new activity going on. Did I say 2021? 2001. 2021 was more recent. It's more in the forefront of my mind. Tucker Carlson is a neocon. That's so indicative of how little he knows. He's like, oh yeah, who else is like Rush Limbaugh? Tucker Carlson. What?
Mouthpiece. And I don't know like how you reconcile hearing a point come out of your radical leftist streamer that could have came out of the mouth of Tucker Carlson on a normal night, on a Wednesday night on his show.
That's true. He got canceled from Fox, by the way. I don't know if he knows that. I don't know if he knows that Tucker Carlson doesn't have the Fox show anymore.
I mean, I guess you could say, we're being charitable, Paul, you've probably had some takes that agree with Tucker Carlson. There's probably takes you have that if we played it, I mean, you'd probably, like, you know, if, let's say if Tucker said he was pro-union. I mean, I can't imagine you saying, well, Tucker's wrong.
Satan down here being very charitable.
But if Tucker espoused the same, I mean, so if we're trying to be charitable to Vaush, we could say maybe if we took one of your takes in that, you know, at least with some reasonable amount of context, you agree with Tucker. There's probably some issues you guys agree on. I guess you could say that.
I mean, like, I'd be hard pressed to think of a social issue or a political issue that Tucker and I are in total lock, like a contentious issue.
Ending support for Ukraine?
Like drug use
contentious
is
one,
usually,
I don't know.
Drug use is usually pretty contentious, and it's pretty right wing to demonize drug use and drug users and to fearmonger about drug use.
I mean, we see that with Fox News coverage.
I don't do that. Actually, Tucker Carlson might do like some pro-drug adjacent stuff sometime. I think I remember Tucker Carlson at points being like inconsistent on the drug thing because there's an inconsistency between like the fascist desire to purge degeneracy and this like you know, faux populist kind of thing. I don't really know. I think he's anti-weed, but I think he's like waffled a bit in the past. It's not like he has to be consistent.
You know, San Francisco and other cities on the West Coast, like, oh, they're just homeless.
Treat all drug indulgers as a monolith, you know.
Oh, that really got
right
him,
wing,
dude.
and that's exactly what Vaush.
Okay, moving on a little bit.
On which there are fulcrum issues in the United States. Most of them orient around like progressive issues or basic economic liberal, like, you know, welfare shit. And liberals tend to be on the same side as the left on that. The only difference is that the left is less effective. Like, what answers are you going to get out of a
liberals? Wait a minute. When's the last time a liberal seriously addressed an economic issue in this country? I'll wait.
I mean, even like with the Biden administration, all of the pro-union stuff, the child care tax, like cutting child poverty in half for a time. Like, obviously, if you had to choose between Republicans and Democrats on economic issues, it's obvious the Democrats are better on them as a leftist, like from a left-leaning perspective. This is not me saying the liberals do enough. It's me saying that if you want to move the country in a positive direction and you have two main like currents that you can follow, leftists will obviously side with Democrats, or at least they should. Like, yeah. All the pro-union stuff, for sure, though. Would the infrastructure bill count? Yeah, absolutely.
Where's this idea that liberals and leftists are close together on economic issues? Can I get an example of that, please?
It's not really that they're close together. It's just a matter of, like, realistically, with what actually can be done in this country, you know, as much fun as it would be to snap your fingers and make society better, like, instantly. In terms of which direction you want to move in, that would be like the preferable one, obviously.
Would it be like when Glass-Steagall was
I think I wasn't kidding about the brain activity ending in 2001. You're seriously going to use a 25-year-old. Well, first of all, this doesn't even disprove the point, even if we were all the way back in 1999, because Democrats and Republicans being bipartisanly stupid doesn't change the the point of the argument. But this actually is where his brain stopped. It was 9/11. 9/11 was the greatest day of paulsego's life, because that was the day he knew he didn't have to grow anymore.
Completely and utterly eradicated under a Democrat presidency? Would that be an example
25.
of the liberals being...
Look, even in the cited image, there's yellowing at the edge of the newspaper, like almost like the editing itself is indicating that we are dredging through the annals of history in order to pull up this specific argument. You know, we had to go into, we're actually looking at what his brain looks like on the inside. These are edits from Thermia, and Thermia was cooking.
Better to go to on, like...
What is this donation comment from Lady Sloth with the the musician girls in high school, Kaon avatar in their YouTube thing. At the end of his response to TJ, Vaush basically implied trans people who cope using weed deserve to feel dysphoric. What? What's the point of me saying anything if you guys are just going to invent a new separate set of things to believe that I said? What the dude? It's always the Kaon avatars. It's always the Kaon avatars. Why even stream? People will simply construct my beliefs from whole cloth, you know? Jesus Christ.
When is this? When I brought up economics during our argument, this dude poo-pooed my whole economic argument.
Maybe that person needs to smoke less weed and they can stop hallucinating the shit that I say.
Argument as if it doesn't matter. The only thing that mattered to this dude was fascism is coming, my guy.
Vaush just keep bringing up points like fascism's bad. That's your average Vaush stream. Fascism is bad. Mass murder is bad. Fascists shouldn't win. You know, that loser, that dork, you know? Can you believe this guy? What was that, Caleb Maupin? No, Caleb Maupin doesn't believe the things that I just said, the nasally voice. Well, it's like the nerd emoji shit, yeah. Actually, fascism is bad. Mass murder of people is bad. Oh, well, dork, you know?
A bunch of fear-mongering and a bullshit.
Dude, this is what I mean about unseriousness. He downplays it. It's one thing to have a principled anti-electoral stance. He just lies. He thinks Tucker Carlson and the Republicans today are neocons. He doesn't know anything. He just hears, like, I don't know, echoes of his liberal parents or something. This is all like, you know, I'm mad at my parents' behavior. He doesn't see... Functionally, this is pro-fascist behavior. You know, this is this level of downplaying the threat of fascism goes beyond merely just being a moron, which paulsego is, to be fair, and extends further into the realm of fascism apologia. There's a limit to how delusional you can be. I thought you were calling him a child just as an insult, but genuinely the dude seems to have an immature brain. How old was he on 9/11 when he stopped growing? Maybe he was like a juvenile back then, and his brain, like, that was like a juvenile brain that it got locked into. Like 65? Okay, he got locked in at the juvenile age of 65 years old at 9/11. I don't know.
Shit like, I think there's a 30% chance there'll never be another election again based on what? I don't know.
I literally listed the things that was based on in our conversation. Why is he like this? Project 2025 isn't a conspiracy theory. The Republicans have literally put out a document on how they want to end democracy. They did an election, like an insurrection attempt last election. There are plenty of like local state GOP groups that contest the election to this day and effectively think that like the current Biden presidency is illegitimate. They've drafted and enacted plans to like fuck around with the electoral system or do like local state like a redistricting or changes to how state electors are distributed to effectively like smear any future results in a presidential election. Like Donald Trump literally joked about being a dictator when he gets into office. Joked, right? Like I don't know. Yeah, this is very straightforward. This is fascism apologia. And by the way, for those of you who don't, like, just so you know, I'm comfortable with you guys calling him a de facto fascist. Like, past a point, you're basically just doing Jimmy Dore shit, right? Where, you know, for one reason or another, whether it be grifting or mental damage or whatever, like, your insistence on downplaying the threat of fascism goes beyond just ignorance and into, like, a broader motivation. Trump said he wanted to void the Constitution. He literally said that. A presidential candidate said he wanted to ignore the Constitution. Like, what would he have to say? Because he said, I'm going to be a dictator when I get into office. And that apparently isn't enough to like trigger any alarm bells. Like what can he say if an explicit acknowledgement of his intentions in clear language isn't enough? I don't know what you'd have to.
Could happen. I mean,
once the DSA wants a socialist organization in America to die.
I mean, look, in Vaush's defense, I mean, Trump could herald fascism. That is a possibility.
Yeah, a giant ass could descend from the boundless reaches of space.
Very serious political commentary here. I know that like Deep Fat Fried has a large progressive audience. Does this not raise red flags in your head a little bit? Does anyone else not think that Paul's ego sounds exactly like all of the liberals who downplayed the threat of Trump to begin with? Like a lot of them downplayed Trump back in 2016 and Bush back in 2000, where it was like, oh, it's not going to be that bad, you know? Like, if anything, he sounds like the liberal here. I'm remembering, what if the moon fell into the Great Lakes? The Jimmy Dore thing, where Jimmy Dore, back before Trump got elected the first time, Jimmy Dore was talking with Sam Cedar, and Sam Cedar was like, if Donald Trump wins over Hillary Clinton, he could elect 2, maybe even 3 Supreme Court judges, and they could get rid of Roe v. Wade. And Jimmy Dore was like, and what if the moon falls into the Great Lakes? And then Donald Trump won, and that exact thing happened. And now we don't have Roe v. Wade. It's gone. Don't liberals downplay fascism? Yes, this is the liberal behavior. It is. Liberals are the ones who treat all of this like a deviation from civility and how like, bipartisanship, blah, 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 blah. Like he is adopting liberal characteristics here. It is generally the purview of the leftists to be relatively alarmist about stuff like this. You know? What does Roe versus Wade mean? Oh, those do kind of sound like swimming terms, don't they? Roe v. Wade was a landmark Supreme Court decision that protected the right for people to get an abortion as a matter of privacy between a patient and their doctor. It was revoked recently by the Supreme Court. It's something that Republicans have wanted to do away with for a long time. Here's the Jimmy Dore clip at 7 years old. 7 years.
And you're voting out of fear again. Out of fear. Oh, because there might be 2 Supreme Court judges. What if there's 3? What if the moon falls into Lake Michigan? What are we going to do then?
Now, Jimmy, let's talk about risk assessment. Do you think there's a difference in the probability that 2 80-year-olds with multiple cases of cancer are going to serve out their term versus the moon falling into Lake Michigan?
3. He got 3 appointments.
I just disagree with your forecasting, Sam. I don't agree with it. I think it's a bigger risk.
Do you want to look at actuarial tables for the life expectancy of an 80-year-old man who's had multiple cancers?
Sam, I can right now get you a great deal on term life insurance, and you know that's the best insurance there is.
I have.
And this was 7 years ago. And now Jimmy Dore is like an insane grifting Republican who will defend any fascist talking point that gets him money. And I guess so is Paul's ego. He's just worse at it. If Paul's ego was maybe a little bit more studious, professional, smarter, maybe he'd be able to make more money like Jimmy Dore off of this disingenuous horse shit. But like, he's doing the same thing, you know? It's ridiculous. In fairness, I think there's an element of grifting to the stupid shit that Paul's ego says, but I think it's mostly ego, fitting for his name. I don't think Paul's ego is capable of admitting that he's wrong on this, because if he admits that he's wrong on this, his identity is instantly in the garbage bin. His whole identity is being a grouchy bitch about stuff like this. If he got rid of that, what would he have left, you know? Here, let's finish up this video.
That is
Crush the world
that
between
is
sweaty butt cheeks. It could
that is a
happen.
fantastical
happen.
scenario, Paul.
Could happen, Scotty.
It is possible, but
You deny
far
that
more
it's
likely.
Print the
Scotty's been pretty reasonable in this, by the way. Scotty's the person down here in the bottom left. So that's cool. I appreciate that.
DSA is a fan of me is a question like that they ask you when you're entering. Like, do you know how weird
Oh
that
no, I'm
feels?
thinking
Like,
of the people
what
that watch
state-
you, where it's like, do you endorse this? That's my so people joining an organization is contingent upon what a streamer thinks about it. I mean, that person
Yeah,
has
when you're
seriously has their
proffering-
priorities in order.
When you're proffering shit like the
Think for
only
yourself,
serious people to go to, like when you're selling young leftists, the only place you can go to is Hillary Clinton for your political ad.
He still thinks Hillary Clinton, genuinely, it's like, it's genuinely like fighting a ghost or something. Like you're going through a haunted mansion and a ghost yells at you and you're like, what the what's your deal, dude? And the ghost is mad about some like 19th century shit or something. You know what I mean? This is, man, he's gonna have dementia when he's older if he doesn't already. Isn't this like a thing? Like thinking people haven't died when they've died, or like living in the past because your memories from the recent past have been deteriorated or something? Like, I don't know. What the it's just like, why say Hillary Clinton instead of Biden? Like, that's the current head of the Democratic Party. It's weird. I don't know. It's very strange. It's the Mandela effect. He's from a different universe, clearly.
Advocacy. Maybe they're right to ask whether or not they're a Vaush before they let them in the door.
True, they're insufferable.
If I
politically ineffective. Very unfortunate. Crazy how effective leftists are in like every other country. Like the United States had to go to multiple wars to try to stop the
oh my
spread of
god, but
communism.
you will fight to the death anybody that wants to stop the cycle of failure of electing shitty leftists in this country.
He doesn't have an opinion outside of he shouldn't vote. I wonder do you think if I had like a hard principled stance on wiping your ass after you shit, that I would get the same kind of like, you know, he just wants to perpetuate the cycle of shitting and wiping. You know, he claims to want better things, but that's the oh my god. All right, is there like another point?
The system changes you. That's just how it works.
Well, you don't change the system from within, you change it from without. It's pressures from out.
You do both. Actually, you need both in almost every case if you want to change a system. Unless you're talking full on like revolutionary violence, and even then it helps to have people on the inside.
Side of the system that are grassroots that come from the people that live under that system that change systems.
Well, even if you argue that would be effective, I mean, liberals are still going to make up some percentage of the population, even if there's other messaging, like you said, Paul, like even if it's 10% or 20% of people. I mean, so like there's still, I mean, within a coalition of government, which is, I mean, any political parties have different groups. I mean, you're still going to have to work with those people in some capacity unless you completely replace them.
That is true. There are over 100 million liberals in this country. If you want to make any kind of big systemic change, you have to do so in a way that includes the perspective of those people. You can shift how they believe. The most effective way of shifting how they believe, in my experience, has been to do what Bernie Sanders did. Bernie Sanders, you can take a look at polling on basically any economic issue within Democrats, and the presence of Bernie Sanders from 2015 onward has had this massive effect on what the average Democrat believes, you know? And he did that from within the system, of course, because he wouldn't have had as much of a soapbox from without it.
Yeah, God willing, we drag them along against their will to a better life.
Just drag like 100 million. Yeah, okay, of course. A very sensible plan for comprehensive reform is, you know, whatever. Let's ignore the perspectives of the nation's majority. That's an effective way of doing, like, even like leftist radicals didn't do this, right? Lenin, Mao, they both made an effort to make allies of, like, the peasantry, you know, countryside fighting, muster an army. Imagine how effective Mao or Lenin would have been if they were like, yeah, we're gonna like just work with other people who already agree with us. What? Why? What? Who does that?
Now, you know, Paul, I think you're still going to have to reckon with them no matter what.
They've been dragging my ass around my entire life. It's time for them to get dragged in
Bitter.
another direction.
I don't think they want to get dragged.
Bitter. And so bitter, dude. So bitter. If they've been voting for Hillary Clinton, then now it's time for me to do whatever.
Dragged by you.
I don't want to get dragged by them, so we're at
they're still dragging you. They could be dragging you all up and down the road, Paul.
They're dragging me because I have an albatross around my neck named Vaush and his ilk, who are steering
people
leftist energy away from protest,
they feel differently
away from
than
direct action and organizations that facilitate it, and into cyclical voting. For
Vaush has said here he favors viable action, Paul. He says he favors viable action, and your action is not viable, Paul.
Enough to like go to the communist club are the people who want a book group, reading circle.
Yeah, you're poo-pooing exactly your prescription that you gave to us. You told us that the real work of leftism happens outside of the internet and outside of the electoral argument, happens in the streets, happens when people get together, and now here you are making fun of it and calling it the communist club. What do you do?
I don't know what argument he's making exactly. There's plenty of non-electoral political engagement you can do. I don't think the best kind of engagement is joining things called the Communist Club. That's probably, as a general rule, and I am generalizing, if there's an institution called the Communist Club, I wonder how much work they get done. You know? Just a little bit. It's a feeling I have, perhaps.
Well, you go over there, play Magic the Gathering with a bunch of other pimply, time-wasted nerds at the Commie Club. Like, you're here trying to, like, convince your young audience to not do shit between elections.
Why are you there?
Effective things between elections.
Honestly, I'd be fine. I would be totally fine with this being the last time we cover Vaush ever.
Oh, shit.
I'd be totally fine with it.
That'll be difficult for him
How do
after
you feel
this
about
gets
that,
out.
TJ?
Well, let's take a look at this little.
I mean, I don't know, Paul. That's pretty crazy to say.
It's a little bit of a different topic. This is about
I know this clip.
the Houthis. And
damn, dude, really? I thought we were done with this boss shit. She just like, I want to get blood from a stone on Paul.
Yeah, check this out. So this
I have plenty of blood left. I'm full of blood.
it's a very short clip, so we'll just play it in its entirety.
All right.
Gave me the impression that they were just sort of being opportunists. But even then, even if I knew like divinely somehow that the Houthis would stop if we did the ceasefire and it would work, I would still advocate for bombing them, I think.
Wait a minute. So you, in this example,
and the clip right there, there's no way there's, remember, only the most credible and authentic takes, the clips of them, they end immediately after the sentence ends. You know, there's no possibility that another sentence might follow that one. That is, I don't know. Yeah, I feel like it's probably pretty bad to attack civilian vessels, and they probably shouldn't do that, obviously. Yeah, I don't know. Seems pretty straightforward. If a person is like running around downtown like 2 Glocks shooting people, and they're like, I will stop shooting people with my double Glocks if the war on Gaza stops. Even if we knew for a fact that they're being honest, I feel like you should still probably arrest that guy, in my opinion. You know? Like, you shouldn't go, oh, well, you know, the double Glock guy will stop if we just end the war in Gaza. The last section of this video is called the Vaush Free Zone. Is it over?
TJ's little subreddit lackey. Here's a directive from the top.
Subreddit lackey. Listen well.
You see a Vaush simp that's just over there rolling around going, Paul Salty. Banned.
As you wish, paulsego.
Gone.
Oh, we have some high effort compositing.
I
here.
will pick you mother out of my pubes like crabs, like a bad pace.
All right, well, good engagement. We learned a lot of interesting stuff. if the result is the end of the genocide, isn't that worth the outcome? Even if it was, you'd still arrest them. But even then, you really think that whatever has gotten America to support Israel is going to stop because of the double Glock man? The double Glock man simply isn't that powerful. Why do they care about your take so much? Well, Paul's ego is mad because I trashed him in 2 convos. Yeah, it's... yeah, I don't know. I hope that the like young progressives who watch him understand what poison he offers them. Even if you disagree with a lot of what I said, Paul's ego is poison. His perspective is a rot of the heart and mind. It's not just a matter of disagreeing about pragmatism or institutional complacency. Like, he is miserable and he projects it outward, and his ideology is one of misery and failure. And his goal is to make you like him, because if people are better than him, which most of you are, it invalidates his ideology. The existence of people that are better than him is an insult to him, because it's an indication that he's choosing to be something worse. So he wants to drag everyone else down. Wretched behavior. Probably all that weed. All that weed and all that music, you know? Nothing good can come from that kind of degeneracy. Rots the mind.